Okay, the third paper I would like to discuss in the geovisualization of time is called Prospects for Space-Time GIS. It is a paper from Professor Michael Goodchild in 2013. And he argued that today map is still the main form or is still the conceptual framework for GIS, but uh, map has its limitations, and it's pretty hard to address time in maps. Today, a GIS is still often presented as a computerized container of maps rather than as a container of large collections of geographic facts that might or might not have been organized into maps. And like I mentioned, it's pretty hard to address time with maps because although maps can be interactive, but they are relatively static. And he then argued that a new type of GIS should be developed. It's called space-time GIS. And he listed 7 distinct forms of space-time data widely exist today, okay, including tracking data, temporal sequences of snapshots and polygon coverages. Temporal sequences of snapshots and polygon coverages, they are actually referring to raster data and vector data. And next, cellular automata. Cellular automata is a technology or a method to do simulation, okay, to do simulation. Agent-based models, they are models also for simulation, and they are usually based on cellular automata. Okay, and events and transactions and multi-dimensional data. He mentioned these 7 types of data because they all can be related to time, and using static maps to address them has its own limitation because like he's been arguing that time is pretty hard to be addressed using maps. Let's go through these 7 types of data and say if it is possible to create or to develop something called space-time GIS based on these 7 types of data and better address time. So the first type of data is called tracking data. It's very easy for us to understand today because it's everywhere today in our daily life. Obviously, GPS is the main source of this type of data, right? Because GPS system provides high accurate position data for civil and definitely military applications, right? And it can be used to track not only humans, but also vehicles, animals, as long as you put trackers on them or aircraft, right? So GPS data today can be very accurate, and the location data is relatively easy to collect today compared to 30 years ago or 20 years ago. But the problem is that there is limited number of tools to analyze tracking data. You would do this in ArcGIS. It's called Tracking Analyst. It's a toolkit in ArcGIS. You will use this toolkit in your lab, but it is one of the limited number of toolkits that can use to address GPS data, tracking data. Next 2 types of data are raster data and vector data. Okay, temporal sequences of snapshots. In other words, it's raster data. Okay, a very different form of space-time data is found in the time series of remotely sensed images. each remotely sensed image is a snapshot of, of a specific area that you are interested in. And of course, you can use the same camera or same sensor to cover the same area every several days or every several months, depending on the temporal resolution of the sensor. But if you put all these images for the same area from different time together, it's a time series of the same area regarding, I mean, a topic, right? Could be the surface temperature of the urbanized area, could be the abundance of vegetation, but you can consider a remote sensing data set for a specific area is a bunch of images, right? And you can order them by time. Okay, snapshots are conceptualized as sequences of cross-sectional continuous views, whereas tracks are conceptualized as movements of discrete objects in space and time. It means that snapshot is for a specific area at a specific time, but tracks, they are trajectories. They are trajectories. Each track is for an individual instead of a specific area. An area is a surface, right? Tracks, they are for individuals. And be careful that these individuals can be humans, can be vehicles, or can be anything that can move, right? And the temporal sequences of polygon coverages are, in other words, it's vector data. Okay, efforts are often made to ensure the persistence of boundaries through time. So it's same. It's not same. It's similar to raster data. Vector data can also be used to address time. Similarly, for the specific area, if you just send people to do field work and create vector data for the area every several years, I mean, the polygons within this area may change. For example, buildings, there could be new buildings, old buildings could disappear, or the boundaries of enumeration units can also change. And vector data are pretty good at addressing them, at addressing the change of boundary, the change of polygons across time. So polygon coverages, or in other words, vector data, they are also related to time, And cellular automata, modeling space-time processes on a fixed raster. There is a video here I found on YouTube to give you a general idea about cellular automata. In general, when you're trying to use cellular automata to address the real world, to do the simulation, you are facing a chessboard with cells. Each cell can be considered as a specific area in the real world or anything. So this chessboard is the space. And of course, for each cell, you can give it a specific value, 0, 1, 2, 3, right? Or any value you want. And it's an abstraction of the real world. You can use it to simulate the change of land use, the change of urban area, right? And you can give specific rules to the cells to watch them change under your rules. So this is a process of simulating the change in real world. Okay, change by what? Of course, by time. Okay, there is another terminology called tick in cellular automata. This chessboard I just mentioned, it will change by ticks. One tick could be a second in the real world, could be a day, could be a week, right? Depending on your specific application. If it is for a land use change, obviously, 1 second for one tick is just too short for land cover change. Maybe one tick is a year, right? For urban growth, maybe one tick is 10 years, right? But anyway, cellular automata can be used to address time. And based on cellular automata, we have agent-based models. Okay, on the chessboard I just mentioned, you can consider each cell as an agent. Of course, on this board you can add other agents. For example, you can add other objects. For example, a dot, a lot of dots. Each dot is a sheep, right? And you can also add a lot of triangles besides all those dots, and each triangle is a wolf. You can use agent-based models to simulate the relationship between wolves and sheep, and observe how they live together across time. You will find out that okay, there is always this balance. There is always this balance. If there are too many wolves, they will die eventually because there will be lack of food. And you will also find out that it's not a good idea to put too many sheep in this world, or both types of animal will also die eventually. So there is this very fragile balance between wolf and sheep. Okay, that's another story. If you are interested in agent-based models and cellular automata, you can enroll the simulation and modeling class. Okay. And today there are event and transaction data everywhere. Each record represents a single event or transaction together with its location in space-time and any relevant attributes. Okay, talking about transaction, today we're in an era of internet. We can buy a lot, not a lot of, basically, I think we can buy most things we want using internet. When you do transaction on the internet, the time will be recorded, your location will be recorded, because the merchandise needs to send the stuff you bought to your place, right? In real world, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. We pay to buy, and there are large amounts of servers. They are used to record transactions, right? In a similar fashion, momentary transaction might be linked by the individuals involved or by the locations in which they occur. So you may know that Walmart, Target, this huge enterprise, retail enterprise, they employ a lot of people who have a GIS background. Okay, because when they are running today, they need spatial data, they need temporal data to record people's behavior, people's transaction, to do analysis, okay, to better serve them, to make more money. And the next type of data is called multi-dimensional data. It means that at a specific location, a specific instrument, or the people who are interested at this specific location, they record multiple features. They do multiple measurements for the same location. Okay, especially for environmental science, environmental data that have been intensively sampled through time at a set of fixed points. For example, in this map, it's a map for temperature, obviously, and each pin here is for a specific. You can consider it as a weather station, and at a weather station, temperature is not the only variable a weather station records. Humidity, wind speed, right, and other a lot of other variables related to weather are recorded. So together, they form a multi-dimensional data set from one station, and this station, each station continues to do the recording for these multiple variables every day, non-stop, maybe every half hour. Okay, so it's multidimensional data is also related to time. Okay, is also linked to time. And is it possible after introducing these 7 types of data we use in GIS today, is an extended GIS both feasible and likely to emerge as space-time GIS? The 7 examples explored in this article from Goodchild provide ample demonstration that any coalescence is going to be very difficult and unlikely to offer the kinds of um, scale economies that have always motivated GIS, which means they are useful, right? The 7 types of data introduced here, they are widely employed today in different applications and studies in our daily life, but it's pretty hard to to combine them to form something called space-time GIS. Okay. Instead, a number of distinct forms of space-time GIS or STGIS are likely to evolve based on distinct data types and suites of scientific questions, which means that at least for today, a coalescence is not likely to happen today, maybe in future. But today, a number of distinct forms of STGIS are possible, which means that when we're using a specific type of data among those 7 types, it's possible to address time, and we should address time when we're addressing the data, when we're dealing with the data. Okay. Okay, that's all I want to discuss for this lecture, the geovisualization of time. And thank you.